Hello, class. Dr. Morton here. I wanted to take some time to lay out my expectations for your work as students. So this presentation is going to discuss APA style, academic writing, and scholarly work. So my general expectations for you for the course are that you're going to produce all original work. So do not reuse work submitted for another course. You should absolutely explore topics you're passionate about or interested in, and you may have explored those in previous courses, but I expect that you will have original work in this particular course. I do want you to use your critical thinking skills, and I want you to use unbiased language in your written work. And so you can learn more about unbiased language at the APA Style website, and you can just go to the Style Grammar Guidelines and select bias-free language. I do want you to also use evidence to support your claims, your recommendation, because this is all going to improve the credibility of your work. It's going to situate your writing within the knowledge and the literature in the field. So I also wanted to share with you that scholarly writing is a critical way to improve your communication skill. It can help you with critical thinking and reasoning skill, and it can also help you assess your sources for they're credible, to make sure that they are credible. So all of these excellent skills you can learn from scholarly writing. So let's just talk just a little bit about APA style. You'll use 7th edition. That is the most current edition for APA. And APA requires a very specific, precise style and format for your paper. So your paper should have a 1-inch margin. I encourage you to use 12 point Times New Roman font or one of the other fonts recommended by APA. Times New Roman is just very easy to read, and that makes it easier for me to read your paper and to provide appropriate feedback. You should double space your work, and keep in mind that most of the work that you're going to submit for the course is not going to need an abstract, but if you do use an abstract, be sure you're formatting that according to APA style guidelines. Do include a page number in the top right-hand corner, beginning on the title page. And keep in mind that page counts for your work do not include the title page, an abstract if you include it, or the reference list or any appendices. I have a pro tip for you. If you're relatively new to your educational journey, I would recommend purchasing the APA manual because it's worth the investment, and you can get it relatively inexpensively on like Amazon. So, more of just general expectations for APA style. All of your submitted work should include a title page, and so the title page should include all required elements. That would be the paper title, the author, that would be your name, your university name, your course name or number, your professor's name, that would be me, Dr. Wendy Morton, and the date. So the body of the paper begins with the paper title, and that is the same title from your title page. So your title should be centered and have upper and lowercase letters. Also, APA 7th edition now requires that you bold the title. Another pro tip is that the introduction follows the title, but it is not under an APA heading entitled Introduction. Um, it is just understood that the first paragraph or the first few paragraphs of a paper is the introduction, and so you don't need to include a heading entitled Introduction. Be sure that each paragraph is indented. Another pro tip is to use APA headings to organize your paper. There are 5 levels of APA heading, and I will discuss those more later in the presentation. So, the body of your paper should include in-text citations. Effective use of scholarly and credible evidence is really critical at the graduate level. So I expect that you're going to have a reference list and you're going to have a corresponding in-text citations throughout the body of your paper. APA follows the author date method. So as it's showing there, the example that is a parenthetical citation with the author's last name, a comma, and the year of publication. So remember, all in-text citations should have a corresponding reference in the reference list. Citations and references should correspond. You cannot have one without the other. So there are two types of in-text citations following APA style guidelines, parenthetical and narrative. So parenthetical are generally at the end of the sentence or even at the end of the section where you're using paraphrased or borrowed information. And then a narrative citation is within the sentence. For example, Morton 2019 indicated that. And then again, the parenthetical would be placed at the end of the sentence or at the end of the section you're paraphrasing or where you use borrowed information or where you need to support your claim with evidence. So if you happen to use tables and charts, you should format those and label them following APA style format. And APA style is pretty specific about how you format tables and charts. However, for most of your work, I would not expect you need to do that. I do want to note that you should be careful if you happen to copy and paste a table or a chart from another source. You need to make sure that it's appropriate that you don't need to get permission, and then you need to give appropriate. You need to note the source appropriately for anything like that. But again, show caution. Make sure that you can use it. If you use quotes, the citation for the quote, whether it be parenthetical or narrative, should include the author's last name, the year of publication, and either like a page number, a paragraph number, a timestamp, um, something like that, even for online sources to show where you can find that quoted information in the particular work that you referenced. So, keeping in mind that you should use quotes sparingly. Um, if it First, let me go ahead and say you should include an introduction to your quote. You should not just have a standalone quote as a sentence. You should introduce it to provide context, to situate that quote within your work. And another pro tip that I started to speak about was to use quotes sparingly. So at the graduate level, you should be able to paraphrase. And paraphrasing involves using your own words to describe another's work. We want to give credit where credit is due. So paraphrased and borrowed information requires, again, a citation and referencing. Um, do include a reference list at the end of your paper. And each reference, again, should have at least one corresponding citation in the body of your paper. So use the hanging indent feature for your reference list, and you can locate that in Word under paragraph, indentation, and special. You will see here in this particular screen, it shows you what that looks like on the word toolbar. There are other ways to apply a hanging indent. This is the one that I just find most easy, and so it's the one that I share. So once you have formatted your reference appropriately, and that means um, formatting every element of that reference correctly, including like having journal titles and italics and things like that. So once you've got it all formatted appropriately, you're going to highlight it. You're going to move to the toolbar, select paragraph, hit that little down arrow, and then you're going under indentation, select hanging and apply that. So some general expectations on writing standards and graduate level work continued here. So graduate level writing should be formal, grammatical, and free of mechanics issues. So I expect that your work is going to be relatively error free. Um, So I do recommend that you use peer-reviewed sources. I'm going to send out, there'll be a PowerPoint along with this video that you can access, and you can learn more about peer review by clicking on that link within the PowerPoint. So academic journals are generally peer reviewed, and that should be the main sources cited and referenced in your paper. So peer review involves the validation of academic writing. So basically, what happens is that a group of experts in the field scrutinizes the work to determine if it meets high standards. So that's this group of experts is going to determine whether or not that work is polished and robust enough to be included in the academic journal. And so these high standards are usually involving the quality, the validity, and the originality of a publication. So that's why we use peer-reviewed sources, because they're this gold standard, and there's a very rigorous process for scholars to have their articles published in a peer-reviewed journal. My pro tip here is to never use Wikipedia. I'm not saying that Wikipedia might be not be a good place for you to start on your journey to learn more about a topic. However, it should just be a starting place. It is not a primary source of information, and at the graduate level, and I would say at pretty much any higher academic setting, Wikipedia is inappropriate. You should use a better source of information to support your ideas. Um, Again, it's a good place to start, but it's not where you should end. So you should have a strong introduction to start the body of your paper, and this comes after it comes after the paper title. Again, it doesn't have an heading entitled introduction. It simply follows the paper title that is on the first line of the body of your paper. So you end your introduction with a clear thesis statement. And so a thesis statement includes all of the main points of your paper, and it's this roadmap for the paper for your paper, and it kind of guides the reader through your paper. So I would recommend that you use APA headings for each of the main points of your paper. Any main point, any summary, analysis, and then your conclusion. This will just improve the organization and the flow of your work. I want you to also carefully structure every paragraph. I want you to start with an introductory sentence. I want you to explain the point for a few sentences, and then I want you to end the paragraph with a transition sentence. So, although this is not a hard number of sentences, basically you need to have 3 to 5 sentences for a well-structured paragraph. No one-word sentences, no one-word paragraphs. This is not creative writing. This is academic writing. And so it needs to adhere to the standards of academic writing. So I'm going to mention this probably a couple of times throughout. Reminder, all borrowed or paraphrased information must be cited in text and referenced in the reference list. This is the basics of giving credit where credit is due. And if you fail to do that, that is likely going to be an academic integrity concern, and it could be escalated further up in the university. So you should cite the first time you borrow or paraphrase and in each new paragraph. So, for example, maybe you're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of need. So you want to cite and reference a source of that information the first time you borrow or you paraphrase it. You might have learned about Maslow in another course. However, learning about something previously does not make a theory, a construct, or other information belong to you. You still give credit where credit is due. And so, unless information is common knowledge, cite and reference. That is for information you even know about through your personal experience working in an organization. You still need to provide robust sources of information to support your claims. I have often gotten students who submit an essay, and I use Maslow on purpose because I have routinely provided feedback to students that you need to cite and reference a source for Maslow, and I will get an email that says, "But I learned about this in another course." Why do I need to cite and reference? And my simplest response to that is that you are not Maslow. So you still, despite learning about it some other place or some other time, you still have to give credit where credit is due. We stand on the shoulders of those who come before us, and it's important that we um, note how their work has influenced our work. You should paraphrase borrowed information very carefully. So, what the paraphrasing involves restating another's work in your own words. So, direct quotes are not the only information that requires citation. Any type of paraphrased information that you borrowed from a website, a book, a journal, whatever the source be, should be both cited and referenced. I'm going to have a link in the PowerPoint version of this where you can click there and you can learn more about paraphrasing. So again, if you borrow information from a website, like a mission statement, budgeting information, organizational structure, anything, you have to cite and reference that website. So your work should end, the body of your paper should end with a conclusion. And so your conclusion is going to be kind of summarizing your main ideas that you discussed, and it's going to add any final thoughts. So before you submit your work, be sure that you're checking for grammar errors, mechanics issues, and typos. I recommend Grammarly as a good tool to find those types of issues, and sometimes it's free or at a reduced price for students if they have a school, a university email. But I want to caution you here. Grammarly now has a lot of AI functions, and so if you go beyond just correcting grammar issues and you use recommended wording or phrasing from Grammarly, that can flag as AI generated writing. And so I encourage you to not do that, that you should be using your own work because it's important that we are being, using integrity, using other work with integrity, using our tools and our resources with integrity. So it's really important that you not use AI generated writing in your assignments. I have a few more pro tips. So, in general, you're going to be writing in the third person. Do not use personal pronouns. I, we, us, me, you. I want you to take yourself out of the writing, and that will improve credibility. Do not use contractions and don't, won't, can't. That's just too informal for academic writing. So, avoid rhetorical questions in graduate level writing. Make your claim and support it with evidence. Don't don't place rhetorical questions in your writing. Again, um, academic writing, you're going to make your claim, you're going to support it with evidence. I do want you to use a scholarly tone throughout your paper. I want you to avoid slang. I want you to avoid contractions, biased language, rhetorical questions, and second person pronouns like you and your. What I do want you to do is to be clear, precise, simple, direct, and to write in the active voice. So let's talk a little bit more about APA headings. So again, an APA heading kind of really helps organize your paper, and it's going to guide the reader through your paper. You start with the highest level of heading, which is the level 1. And so I recommend that you align your headings with any requirements from the assignment. Does that mean I want you to copy and paste the prompt and use that as your heading? Absolutely not. You should appropriately format the heading so that it is a heading that reflects the topic that is coming in the following section or paragraphs. So, level 1, you should have that centered boldface title case heading. Level 2 is flush left, it's a boldface title case heading. Level 3 is flush left, boldface italic title case heading. Level 4 is indented boldface title case heading ending with a period. So level 5 is indented boldface italic title case heading ending with a period. In general, I expect that you're going to have at least level 1 headings throughout your work. So I wanted to provide just some examples of online journal references for you to see. So you use a last name of the author, the first initial, the year of publication, because this is a journal. You have the title of the journal article, and then you have the journal name in that, in like the issue number, page number. Include a DOI or a URL if at all possible, because there are times when I need to check your sources. So again, those are just examples of what references for online journals would look like. So I find that students often get confused when they're using government or organization websites. And so if there's not an author listed and you're on a specific website like Oklahoma State Department of Health, you would use the organization or the government as the author, your publication, title, and then again, URL. So here we're just following up a little bit more on in-text citations. So your parenthetical, again, is going to come at the end of the sentence or end of the section that you're paraphrasing or you're borrowing information from. And the narrative is included, so you use the author's last name. Burns, 1978, noted that. Um, this is just what this looks like in in writing, and so I just wanted to provide a few examples. And so I also wanted to provide an example, or just to provide a tip that cited materials are generally in the past tense because the author has explored that, stated that, suggested that in the past. So let's talk about et al. So et al is an academic writing convention and it just means and others. So you use it when you have three or more authors. And so you would say, in like a narrative citation, Taylor et al. 2019, in a parenthetical, it would just be located within the parentheses at the end of the sentence or the end of the section that you're paraphrasing. It'll just save you time. Again, anything that's three or more authors, you're going to use et al. So, depending on your university, you may use Safe Assign or Turnitin reports for plagiarism detection. So, um, if possible, I would encourage you to use that to check for any issues in your work before you submit. And you should correct any issues with high matches to paraphrased or borrowed information. I will say that you might have a high score due to the paper title, your university name, the course name, your references. Those are acceptable. That's not what I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to look to see that you are not copying and pasting or just changing a few words and using someone else's work as your own. I review, in fact, I review regardless of the score most safe assign and Turnitin reports, but I certainly look at anything that's 8% or higher. 8% seems like a very low score, but I have had people with relatively low scores that cheated. So, what I want to say to you now is that plagiarism, self-plagiarism, cheating will all result in some kind of academic integrity violation submission and possibly a grade of 0 for your assignment. I will escalate any issues up through the university as needed. Also, if there are concerns with AI generated writing, I will escalate those up however that needs to be done through your specific university. Again, I want to remind you that I also expect you to submit all original work, so do not reuse papers submitted to other courses. When you do that, that's called self-plagiarism, and that is an academic integrity concern as well. So, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me. Use any resources your university provides to help you with APA and writing. There's a lot of really great resources available online, like the Purdue OWL or apastyle.apa.org. Use all of those resources to help you with your work. And if you have specific questions for me, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can't help you with that. Thanks.